Hey folks, welcome back. Let's keep going. Let's keep making even more music. This time around, we are going to do something a little bit different. We are going to be using semi-modular synths and the pre-wired one in the form of kind of like a MOOG Orchestra, if you will. Three very nice synths here, and I'm sure quite a few of you guys can relate to this setup here. I know for a fact that there are a lot of you who own the DFAM or a Mother 32 or a Sub 37 or any combination of these three, and at least a few Eurorack modules. And in this video, what I want to do is, just like we did before, use these synths in conjunction with Ableton and CV tools, and let's see what sort of a synergy we can come up with in between all these components. So just to go through the setup real quick, we have the Sub 37, we have the MOOG Mother 32, and we have the MOOG DFAM. Now, these two are semi-modular synths, meaning that out of the box, they are already pre-wired, so you can play them without having to patch anything, but they also have a patch bay, which will give you the option to integrate it with other Eurorack modules or do self-patching and modulate the synth itself with its own control capabilities. Now, I already have a pretty complex patch here set up, so I already know what it is that we are going to be doing. What I want to do in this video is to basically build on this patch by using the ES8 and the CV tools to create some tension and release elements and dial in some extra animation on top of what we already have. So let's listen to the patch, what we have so far. And I'm just gonna go one by one. So we have this very nice, slow DFAM drum patch. And this is tuned to the rest of the synths. Now, before we have a look at the other two elements, let's jump into Ableton and let me show you what I have inside Ableton, just so this makes more sense. So on track number 1, as of now, I have the CV clock out, which is sending clock information to the DFAM itself. The MOOG Sub 37 is being synced to our Ableton session via 5-pin MIDI. So if I open the MIDI preferences tab, it is connected to the MIO10, port number 10, so we can send note and clock information to the Sub 37, and that is what's happening here. On the second track, I have a note sequencer as well as a MIDI scale, and we're going to listen to this in a minute. And then on a separate track, which is an audio track, I have the line in coming in from the Sub 37. Now this one coming out of the Sub 37 is actually going into the Erica Fusion, and from the Erica Fusion we are using input number 3 to bring the audio back into Ableton. So let's listen to this patch right now. So this one is getting its note information coming from the dark sequencer via MIDI. And as you can hear, it's not a dry signal. You can see 3 effect units here. We have the magneto, the Strymon magneto, which is a tape delay effect. We have the tip-top Z-verb, and we have the tip-top Z5000. So instead of patching these effect modules to one individual voice per module, what I did, and this is going to be familiar from the previous video, I set all of them up, all 3 of them up, as send return effect tracks in Ableton. And that's what you're going to see down here. So you should already be familiar with this. If you haven't watched the previous video, then go back and watch it with the tip-top groove, because that's the first time where we're using this method. So we're using an external audio effect. We're sending the audio to the external world, and then we are bringing it back, and it goes as such. The Strymon magneto is in a mono configuration. It's receiving audio from Ableton, and it's sending a mono signal back to Ableton. The next one, the Z-verb. Again, we are using an external audio effect. It's receiving audio from Ableton and sending a stereo signal back to Ableton. And the Z5000 is set up in the same way. Now, I've already put a gate behind these return lines because some of them are a bit noisy and I didn't want the noise to be in there. And I've did a little bit of EQing, sort of a bit of a pre-mixing session, if you will, to make sure that frequencies don't clash with each other. So we have 3 send return tracks, all 3 of them connected to an external Eurorack effect module. And again, I'm going to refer back to one of the first videos from the section when we were talking about the elements of a modular synth, where I said, if you're thinking to get into Eurorack synthesizers and don't know how to get started, and you have an audio interface that can send a few channels of audio out and receive another few back, and you have Ableton or any other DAW, then my recommendation would be to start with a couple of Eurorack effect modules, because this way you can use them to enhance your Ableton sessions. So that's a good starting point in my opinion, but again, take it with a grain of salt. Okay, so let's listen to these external effects. I'm just going to be using this hi-hat loop here for now. Let's start with the magneto. Gives it a bit of a groove. Okay, let's listen to the Z-verb. This is going to work better on the melodic elements. And last but not least, the Z5000. It's kind of like a ping pong delay for now, but again, it's going to work a lot better on the external synths. Okay, so let's go back to the Sub 37. Let's listen to this real quick. So this one, we're sending it into the Z-verb and a little bit into the magneto. This is the dry one. With the Z-verb. And with the magneto. I mean, just for shits and giggles, let's try it with the Z5000. Very nice. The Mother 32, which is playing this sort of distant pad with a little bit of glide on it. The LFO is modulating the pulse width, and I also have the SAW VCO patched back into the noise input. So instead of using noise, the mix is now fading between the pulse wave and the SAW wave. And this one is going through the Z-verb all the way. And last but not least, we have our DFAM drum group. Next parameter that I would like to modulate is this VCF mod, because it just sounds freaking amazing. Let's bring in another CV utility. know, a second thought, since the Sub 37 is going through the plasma drive, might as well give that a little bit of automation too. So let's maybe modulate that with a CV LFO. Let's use an up ramp, and let's send this to external out number 2. Now let's slow this down by a lot, say every 16 bar. And now let's patch that into the drivette of the plasma drive. I dialed up the smooth parameter on both the CV utility and the CV LFO because there were a couple of clicks that I wasn't too happy about. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, let's use the CV shaper. Again, we are going to sync this to our tempo. And I want to play around with the VCF mod of the DFAM. So let's send this external out number 3. Again, we'll make it unipolar. Let's get a patch cable, something that's long enough. We're going to patch this into the VCF mod. Let's see what this does. Nice. Okay, and then another cool parameter to modulate would be the 1 to 2 FM amount. So let's do that as well. I'm gonna save the project. Let's do an LFO again, CV LFO. Send it to external out. Number 4 is still available. Yeah, okay, we're gonna make this unipolar as well. Let's modulate this over 4 bars. Let's get a long patch cable. And let's see what it does. So we're going to patch it into the 1 to 2 FM amount on the DFAM. Let's see what it does. Okay, let's bring in the Sub 37. You know, I'm gonna get rid of this plasma drive modulation. I'm not too crazy about it. Let's go back to the CV-LFO that we were using to modulate the drive-at of the Erica Fusion, and I think I'm still gonna use that, but instead of modulating the drive-at parameter of the Erica Fusion, why don't we modulate the LFO rate of the Mother 32? Okay, let's dial that down a bit, maybe to about 60%. And instead of the ramp, no, we're gonna keep using the ramp. Maybe put a little bit of randomness in there with the jitter. Still take it down to 20%. I don't want that much of a movement on this LFO. So basically what this CV-LFO is doing now by sending this CV signal to the LFO rate of the MOOG Mother 32's LFO rate modulation option, you see how the rate is changing ever so slightly. And that's because of this CV coming in. Otherwise, this would just be a constant speed LFO. But this way, We have a bit more animation. Okay. All right, so let's play this out. Let's see what we have here so far. And while we are at it, we are also going to record everything. So let's enable incoming tracks for recording. All right, here we go. Let's see what's up. All right, cool. Let's leave it at that. Now, obviously, this is not for everyone. This is sort of a love it or hate it kind of sound. Very experimental, very different and out there. But that's what playing with synths is all about. We experiment, we try to come up with new stuff by the process of trial and error. And sometimes it works great. Sometimes we get good stuff that, gives us goosebumps. And sometimes we get extremely frustrated and it just doesn't happen. But that's just how it goes. As long as you have the patience for it and your passion and your heart are at a right place, you will have fun doing it. So, in the past few videos, we have used everything that we've learned so far. We put it into practice and we created quite a few interesting and some more common patches. I hope you found this segment useful. Now let's keep going.